I discovered a shocking truth. My father, thought to be dead, is actually the murderer of my biological mother and is still alive, secretly imprisoned by my brother. Now I hold the key to his freedom, but should I really do it? Chapter 32. That night, I lay beside Zach with our hands joined between us and my head resting on his chest. His arm draped around me and mine curled around his torso. "Are you okay?" he asked through the darkness. "No," I squeaked. He tucked me further into his chest. "Why did you let him out? If you hate him and don't trust him, why endanger yourself like that, sweetheart?" I escaped my lips. "I also hate his brother for killing Mom. I know he does too." I saw his face when I played the video. He looked broken. Despite his actions, he loved my mom and he's the only way I will know why she was killed. I explained. "We could have asked him ourselves," Zach whispered. "I want justice. He deserves to suffer for what he did and I know Dean will make sure of that. Or we could have just reunited to evil murderers who might come after you next." He grumbled and I froze. "I never thought of that," I admitted reluctantly, and Zach sighed above me. "I won't let anyone hurt you. You know that." It was a promise that brought me a little peace of mind, but my bigger worry was if my friends and family would become collateral damage once again. I shook my head slightly to remove the thought from my mind. My head was already a mess and I couldn't worry any more. I might have combusted. "I want to believe him," I told Zach in a whisper, staring into the darkness. "What do you mean?" "I want to believe that he didn't take her from me to Herbert because he loved her and couldn't be without her," I told him, squeezing his hand tightly. "I want to believe that he didn't send those threats. I want to believe he wanted to get to know me when he came for me and he never wanted to hurt anyone. I want to believe him, but I can't, because I know it's not true." I sighed, tears trickling down my cheeks. "I don't," Zach grunted in reply. His hand swept across my cheek, swiftly flicking away my straight ears. "Why not?" I peeked. "Because if it wasn't him threatening you, then who the hell was?" I shifted in the bed to face him and saw his stricken expression. Gently, our lips collided and the warm feeling of his soft mouth covering mine dusted away any fears or thoughts. It was just me and him. In that moment, the rest of the world crumbled away and the two of us were safe, together and happy. "I love you, Zach," I told him softly. "I love you too, baby. So much." I shuffled back so my hand rested over his steadily thumping heart. "No matter what, you are going to get through all this. I promise. You'll always have me." Our lips met once again and we both melted into each other, his words bouncing around between us. "Always?" I didn't go to school the next day. Hell, I hadn't been to school in weeks and somehow I didn't think I would be anytime soon. I had a feeling that was over. At some point in the last few months, I had grown up. School seemed trivial compared to what was going on around me. I had too many responsibilities to just blow off for school. So I stayed in bed for as long as possible. "You think you might get up today, sweetheart?" Zach's voice whispered from behind me. The digital clock directly in front of me read 10:55, so it wasn't actually that late in the day. I felt Zach's hand slide up from my waist towards my chin, and the warmth of his skin against mine alighted every one of my nerve endings. His thumb drew circles over my cheek while his soft lips pressed against the back of my shoulder, and I sighed from genuine happiness. "Nope," I replied, leaning into his touch as much as I could. Meanwhile, his other hand trailed over my torso before rising a little towards my breasts, and I held my breath from the anticipation. His hot breath suddenly fanned against my ear as he drawled, "Fine. Then I will just have to find something to keep us both busy." I smirked and turned my head to meet his sparkling eyes, smiling up at him widely. I love this man so much. He understood that right now. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to pretend. I just wanted him. I needed him. I needed the one person who made me feel safe and happy no matter what went on outside these bedroom walls. Sounds perfect to me. I closed the gap between us and pulled his bottom lip into my mouth, holding it captive between my own lips. Our foreheads were pressed together while our mouths danced together, his tongue coaxing my lips apart so he could take charge. Obviously, I let him. Soon, his whole body was over mine, cocooning me beneath the sheets and heating my body to about 100 degrees. However, as his hands brushed over my skin gently, goosebumps began to litter the trail he left. "I love you," I mumbled into his lips, needing him to hear those words right now. I needed him to know how much I appreciated him taking care of me without making me feel helpless. Not that I think he minded this particular method. He pulled away, much to my disappointment, and rested his forehead on mine, sliding his hands down my arms until they slipped into mine, our fingers folding together. "I love you too. And you know I'm here if you want to talk about it." While the offer was sweet, that was the last thing I wanted to do. Admitting I made a mistake was like driving a knife through my heart, painful and not something I was willing to do. I also couldn't tell Zach I was scared. I couldn't tell him that Dean scared me, not just because he killed my father and was a violent asshole, but because he was my biological parent, the only one I had left. I was scared he was lying about everything he said yesterday. I was scared to be disappointed, so I shook my head. "I don't want to talk about it," I confirmed, and he nodded with a smug smile. "I didn't think so. Just thought I would put it out there." "Thank you." I kissed him gently. "Thank you so much." For a while, all we did was stare into each other's eyes, our hands joined and our bodies pressed together. Then, it was suddenly like a switch went off and we were tearing each other's clothes away. I couldn't strip away his boxers fast enough, and by the time I had, he had managed to rid me of my shirt and underwear, leaving me naked and breathless beneath him. As per usual, he spent a few silent minutes analyzing every inch of my bare skin, scanning it and making a mental image so he could remember every part. And while he did that, I did the exact same thing to him. I noted every scar on his smooth and otherwise perfect skin, every crevice and bulge in his chest, every crease, every flaw, every perfection. I loved every single part of him, and I never wanted to forget this sight. It was my favorite view. Him, naked and smiling down at me with so much love in his eyes, so much admiration and desire. I squirmed beneath his intense stare, accidentally grinding my hips against his. A smirk forged on his lips, and the love and adoration morphed into lust instantly. The icy blue seas in his eyes sunk into the darkest recesses of the ocean as they raked over my body again, shamelessly. Zach's lips crashed down onto mine like a tidal wave on a shore. Our bodies writhed between the sheets, every part of us touching as intimately as possible. His taste filled my mouth, and I was drunk with ecstasy as we became one. No matter how many times we made love, I would always be amazed at how perfect he was. He was the perfect combination of wild but gentle, fast but loving, fiery and passionate but full of love and adoration. He was perfect, and he was mine. Chapter 33. So I clapped my hands in front of my face, Dean is out there somewhere doing who knows what, and there is a possibility that there is also an evil brother, and God knows what he is plotting. I huffed. Liam raised an eyebrow at me before I continued. So we need to increase protection of the pack. I turned to Tyler, who was nodding in agreement. We need wolves on the border 24/7, and then they need to be alert and awake. We need some more fighters and a couple more protection wolves enforced in case anyone thinks to attack. Got it? He nodded and I smiled. Brilliant. Can you make a start on that? I need to call 𝐴𝐸 and find out what the hell his. I sighed before correcting myself. My father is up too. That's fine. I am happy to sort it. He assured me with a quick peck on the cheek before he was striding out of the house. Great. Now that's out of the way, pass me my phone. I nodded to the table beside Zach, who slid it over to me with a nod. Thanks. I dialed 𝐴𝐸's number and grinned when he picked up. Hey, El. It's good to hear from you. Hey, I'm sorry I have been Nia. I needed a bit of time, and then yesterday I was back in school and catching up, and then today there was school drama, and I sighed, aware that I was rambling. Sorry. Don't worry about it. Are you okay? Fine. I told him a little too quickly. I just wanted to know if he was there. I prayed to anyone willing to listen that my father had stayed put and wasn't currently on his way to kill me or my friends. Yeah? Did you want to speak to him? He offered, but I quickly set him straight. No, I don't. I just wanted to make sure so my pack aren't on constant alert, I explained. Has he found anything? He has a few locations jotted down of where he might be, but I don't know if it's a good idea to let him leave the territory. 𝐴𝐸 sighed. Listen, 𝐴𝐸. I can't forgive him for what he did. I just can't. But you're his son. The two of you always had a good relationship, right? You don't have to hold a grudge just because of what he did to me, I assured him. The last thing I wanted was for 𝐴𝐸 and his dad to never have a good relationship because of me. I plopped onto the sofa as he replied, swinging my legs up onto the coffee table. He just isn't who I thought he was, and I need some time to get used to that. I understand. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. It's up to you at the end of the day, but I would love for the guy who killed my mom to be dead. Just let me know when you have decided. Just in case. I still didn't trust Dean and wanted to know as soon as he left his territory. I will. Take care, okay? He pleaded, and I couldn't help but smile. You too. See you soon, bye. He ended the call and I leaned back on the sofa with a content sigh. 𝐴𝐸 had been one of my closest friends in the months after our dads died or were meant to have died, so knowing he was family was comforting. Okay, Liam's voice snapped. Spill, you are in a very productive mood? He sent me a knowing look and I sighed. I'm sick of moping. I let Dean out and may have a psychotic uncle as well as father, but sitting around and feeling sorry for myself won't change anything, I told him. Zach silently moved beside me and kissed my cheek while Liam took my hand. You are allowed to mope for a while, baby, my incredible boyfriend whispered in my ear. I leaned into his warm embrace and smiled softly. I know. His lips touched my forehead, barely stroking over my skin, but I don't want to. Before he could speak again, the sound of the house phone ringing blared through the house. Since when did we have a house phone? Liam frowned while 𝐿𝐸 stood to answer. I laughed and watched while 𝐿𝐸 nodded and then threw the phone over to me. Hello. Hey, 𝐿. I called your mobile, but it said you were in the middle of a call. Tyler's voice crackled through the old phone pressed against my ear. Sorry. I called 𝐴𝐸. I explained. "What's up?" he groaned. "There are a couple of kids trespassing, demanding to speak with you. They seem harmless but won't leave until you get here. Did they say what they want?" "Just to talk with you," he answered. "Fine. I will be there as quick as I can," I informed him before ending the call. "I have to go," I told the boys, hopping up off the sofa and shrugging on a jacket. Summer was fast approaching, but there was still a chill in the air. "Where?" Liam raised an eyebrow, frowning over at me. "Some wolves at the border want to speak to me." "Wolves, as in plural," Zach growled, stepping in front of me. "Yes, as in plural. But Tyler and the protection wolves are there. I'll be fine." I pressed a reassuring kiss to his lips before stepping around him and leaving the house. I arrived at the border a few minutes later to see a larger group of protection wolves than previously, obviously thanks to Tyler and a few of the border wolves circling 3 strangers. The one I saw first was a girl around a similar age to me. Her hair was a little ratty and bleached blonde, although it was obvious it hadn't been washed for a while. Her eyes were gleaming amber while she struggled against the wolf holding her. The other 2 were boys, one also around my age, resembling the girl majorly. He had slightly darker blonde hair, but his face structure and build were the same. Finally, the other boy must have been 11 or 12, shaking slightly while he was pinned to the ground. The older 2 were snarling at the border wolves who had pinned this kid to the floor, and I felt my own fury surge. "What the hell is going on here?" I snapped. All eyes snapped to me, examining me before the members of my pack cowered slightly. A spark of recognition lit up in the older boy's eyes, and only a second later, he was also bowing down a little. "Hey, what the hell has it got to do with you?" the girl snapped, causing my eyes to flame in anger. "Liv," the boy snapped, sending her a warning glare which went ignored. She simply stared at me while I snarled at her, anger bubbling up at the way she spoke to me. "Did you not hear me? It's got nothing to do with you, so why don't you mind your own business and get lost?" She glowered at me, and it took all my strength to stop from snapping her neck. "How dare you?" I snarled, taking a threatening step towards her. "Who do you think you are, speaking to me like that?" She growled lowly before meeting me gaze. "Listen, bitch." I let out a deep snarl at the name, stepping closer still. "We are waiting for the alpha, so get lost." My eyebrows shot up as I registered her words. She had no clue who I was. I didn't know whether to laugh or growl in reaction to her words. "Liv, that is the alpha." The boy hissed and the girl's face dropped instantly. "WH what?" She slowly tilted her head to meet my eyes again, and I sent her a smile that was anything short of menacing. "I didn't," she sighed in despair and lowered her head. I ignored her and turned to the older boy. "What are you doing on my territory?" His glance flickered between me and who I guessed was his sister several times before it locked on me, and he muttered, "We were hoping for your help." Chapter 3. I couldn't hold back the scoff that breezed out from between my lips. "My help?" I raised an eyebrow incredulously at him. He simply lowered his head as though he was ashamed, but he quickly snapped it back up when a small whimper of pain left the younger boy. Both of the older started to thrash and snarl in my pack members' arms, struggling against their holds while they watched the kid wince. Now that I was closer, I could see how their grip was leaving marks in his skin and their claws sunk into his flesh. His arms were twisted at a funny angle, and he was pinned to the ground in a mangled position. "Let him go," I ordered. One of my protection wolves glanced up at me with a concoction of fury and confusion lacing his features. But Alpha? He tried to run. I looked at the innocent-looking boy who shook a little. Well, he doesn't have anywhere to go now. He's a cub and you are hurting him. Let him go now. Instantly, the boy was let free and I saw him hesitate for a moment, glancing between me and the two captured wolves with a conflicted look. I could see the silent conversation the three were having but couldn't figure out what they were saying. Suddenly, the boy lurched forwards and into the older boy's hold, still shaking a little. The boy pulled his own arms free and circled them around the cub. Just as the protection wolves went to grab him again, I snapped, "Leave him." I watched the two embrace for a moment and then spoke. "Who are you?" I decided to ask. The guy looked up with a small, polite smile. "My name's Oliver. This is my sister. Live and our brother Luca," he told me, smiling more sincerely to his siblings. "Are you twins?" I asked, nodding between him and Liv. He nodded in reply. "And what exactly did you want my help with?" I questioned, raising an eyebrow. The three were silent for a few moments, glancing between each other again. I recognized what they were doing as something 𝐿𝐸 and 𝐿𝐸 often did, conversing through expressions. Finally, Oliver turned back to me with an almost ashamed look on his face. His brown eyes flickered to his little brother for a second. "We came to ask if there was any chance you would take us into your pack." His beautiful brown eyes displayed his hopelessness, and my heart pained with guilt and sympathy. Rather than looking at his pleading face, I turned to his sister. "Is that how you usually speak to people you want help from?" She raised her eyes to meet mine head-on, and although I could easily read her regret and worry, she also displayed determination. "I had no idea you were the Alpha." I frowned. "That's not what I asked." "Is that how you normally speak to people?" I repeated. Slowly, she sighed yes. I was taken aback by her honesty, but then, somehow I could tell this girl was completely honest and blunt. "Tell me why you don't already have a pack." Again, shame washed through her murky brown eyes. "I insulted my Alpha and he exiled me. My parents wanted nothing to do with me, but my brothers wouldn't let me be alone. I considered what it must be like to leave everything you know behind for family, or to leave family behind for everything else." "And why did you come here?" This time, her brother answered. "We traveled across the country trying to find a pack, but no Alpha wants someone who is disrespectful. We heard rumors of your kindness and had nothing to lose." I nodded, trying to keep my expression emotional as, "And what if I accepted the two of you?" "Would you leave your sister?" His answer was instant. "No." I couldn't help but smile. "I admire that." And it was true. I admired that the two boys, even the young one, would stick by her side no matter the risks. Rather than continuing to berate them with questions, I turned to Tyler. "Can you bring them to the square?" I asked and he nodded while the rest of my wolves began to gather them again. "Wait. What are you doing?" The girl snapped, still unable to keep her attitude at bay. Ignoring her question, I followed as they were part led, part dragged across the village to the square. "What the hell?" Liv snarled as she was thrown into the center. "Please don't hurt her." Oliver begged me and I frowned. "You think I am going to hurt her?" The surprise was clear in my tone. "You aren't." Liv asked incredulously and I shook my head, standing face to face with her no. I met her confused eyes. "I want an apology. Nobody speaks to me like that. Nobody." She was frozen for a couple of seconds, obviously taken aback by my request before she was nodding furiously. I am sorry. I really am. I had no idea who you were. That's no excuse. It wouldn't have mattered who I was, alpha or not. You don't disrespect a member of my pack. Especially not when you then have the nerve to ask for something. I snapped. Liv bowed her head. Sorry. I could tell she meant it and nodded. Satisfied. Good. If you're going to stay, it better not happen again. I warned. Wait. Her eyes went wide. You're letting us stay. Oliver gasped, sharing his sister's expression. Yes, you heard the rumors. I'm not a monster. Besides, I don't think it's right you should be punished for your mistakes for the rest of your lives, and I certainly don't believe it's fair for the two of you to suffer because of your sister's attitude. I turned back to Tyler and the rest of the wolves. Thank you. You can go? They all bowed and walked away, except for Tyler, who kissed my cheek. Want me to find a house that's available? He offered. I kissed him back, smiling at the best beta wolf I could have as well as someone who was like family to me. Thanks, but I have all the files in my office, so I've got it. With that, he left and I was leading the 3 new members of my pack towards the house. Obviously, Zach and Liam picked up on their scents because as soon as I opened the door, they were there, glaring at the strangers. Zach, Liam, I turned to the 3. This is Liv, Oliver, and Luca. Who the hell are they? Liam snapped with frown. Don't be rude, I scolded. They are new to the pack. At their low growls and angry expressions, I grinned at them both. I seem to have a habit of taking in strays. Liam rolled his eyes in my direction and backed away, so he was no longer in their faces. The fiery amber in his eyes faded, and so did Zach's until they were back to their beautiful blue. Can I just ask something? Liv mumbled from behind me, and I turned to see her looking a little pale with eyes wide as saucers. Is everything okay? She grinned at me. You live with them. I nodded, still confused. Both of them, she gasped, her eyes flicking from one to the other. Shit, Liv. Oliver scowled at his sister. Shut up, Holly. Bloody hell. She gawked at the 2 smug-looking Thorn boys for a little longer and then leaned towards me. Are you sleeping with them? Luca clamped his hands over his ears at her language while my jaw dropped at her invasive question. Zach grabbed my waist and pulled me into a possessive kiss, answering her questions and marking his territory both at once. I'd have to find them a house, I told him, pulling away and stepping around him before I forgot all about our company and dragged him up to bed. Find one for Liam while you're at it. Get the house to ourselves again. He winked and I laughed before slamming the door on the 2 of them as they began an argument about the house and how much I loved Liam. How do you get anything done around here? Liv gasped to me while her brothers sat on the sofa in my office, Ollie talking to Luca about being in a pack again. I shrugged and dropped into the office chairs. The attraction goes away the second they open their mouths. I mumbled under my breath, searching through the computer files and shaking my head. Liv grinned from the other side of the desk. I have found that's the case with most men. I heard her say and grinned. Chapter 35. The next morning, I hammered my fist against the apartment door in Block J, waiting impatiently for someone to answer. This block wasn't too shabby and was full of cubs playing in the hallways. Alpha Reed? A young girl ran past me as though she might catch a disease from me, and I frowned. I had always been close with my pack, every member old or young. But now they feared me and I hated it. I wanted respect. Definitely. I hated being disrespected, but fear was totally different. The fact that people ran from me made my heart take a little. The girl was tiptoeing back towards me to pick up a hair clip I assumed she had dropped as she flashed past. She approached me cautiously, as if not to wake a sleeping dragon. "Here you go, sweetie." I picked up the clip and handed it to her, making sure to smile brightly. "Thank you," she mumbled with a small, nervous smile. "This is pretty." The clip was pink and sprinkled with glitter, and a small plastic daisy was glued to one end. Her smile magnified. "My daddy bought it for me. It's my favorite." She took the clip from my hand and slotted it back into her hair. "𝐿 Oliver's voice called from behind me, and I turned to see him in the doorway with a pair of shorts on and small droplets of water falling from his hair and trailing down his bare chest. He was reasonably good-looking, but was nothing compared to Zach. He was slimmer and nowhere near as muscled, but he still had a sturdy build and ripped abs. I turned back to the girl. "Bye, sweetie, bye." She waved and threw her arms around my legs before scurrying off, leaving me smiling. "Sorry, I was in the shower," Oliver explained as I turned back to him. I waved him off. "Don't worry about it. I'm sorry to bother you, but I am spending the day with my friends who I assume are around the same age as you, and live and wondered if you wanted to join us. You could meet some of the pack, and there is a kids club downstairs for Luca if he wanted to meet some of the kids here." "That sounds great." He grinned. "Let me check with the others." I nodded. "That's fine. We are meeting at mine in about an hour, so if you want to come, then just meet us there. If not, see you soon." "Thanks, 𝐿. He grinned. "God, please call me Ella," I begged, always imagining my father as 𝐿. "See you." With that, I made my way back down the stairs and out into the warm sunshine. Today, the sun shone brightly over the valley, simmering through all the clouds so there was a clear blue sky. The warm air brushed over my bare skin as I crossed the village in a pair of white tripped shorts and a black t-shirt. My hair was pinned back in a ponytail and curled loosely. "Hey, beautiful." Zach's voice cut through the peace and quiet of the summer morning. Sundays meant a rest for most of the pack, so the only activity were cubs chasing each other through the street or a few people strolling in the summer sun. "Nice run?" I asked him, trying to keep my gaze focused on his eyes. Not the droplets of sweat on his upper lip or his damp hair or the way his top clung to his glistening skin. A sweaty man had never, ever been a turn-on until Zach anyway. His scent was raw and masculine, and somehow he looked bigger, broader and more muscular while his shadow cast over the grass beside us. "A bit too hot?" he admitted, and I grinned, walking home alongside him. "What did I say?" I teased. Yeah, you were right," he grumbled, taking my own sweaty palm into his extremely large and soaked hand. "Get off. You're all sweaty." I cringed, pulling away. "If I get you all sweaty till we can shower together. 𝐾𝐿. I laughed. "Nice try. We are meeting everyone today. I am sick of their whining about never seeing me anymore, so we are spending the day at the lake. So you aren't up for a quickie before we go?" He raised his eyebrows, staring down at me incredulously. "No," I replied, staring at the glaze on his lips. "Probably not." I changed my answer before leaning in. "Maybe just a really quick quickie." I pressed my lips to his and smiled against him. He tasted masculine. So damn sexy and masculine. I could have got lost in his taste, melting into his arms while our tongues danced. I didn't even care that we were in the middle of the village while cubs raced around us. Although, when I could feel his hard member pressing through his shorts into my belly, I knew it was to pull away. "You're so damn beautiful," he gasped, smiling down at me. "So are you." I grinned and retook his hand. We sped back home and found ourselves in the shower extremely quickly while our clothes were scattered throughout the house. The cold water rained down on us while our own heat intensified and crackled between us. I couldn't get enough of this man, and I didn't think I ever would. A sudden banging on the door pulled us 𝐿𝐷. "You guys are going to be late," Liam yelled from my bedroom. "We will be out in a minute." I called back, reconnecting my lips with Zach. "By the way, I have Ella's fancy blue bra and I am keeping it." He cackled, making Zach snarl into my mouth. "Liam," I yelled, needing that back. It was one of my favorites and matched the underwear that was currently draped over the door handle. "Get out the damn shower," he called, his voice further away as he left my room and headed back downstairs. "I messed up your hair." Zach pouted adorably, wrapping a towel around us both and running his fingers through my soaked, tangled locks. "It would have messed up anyway." I shrugged, placing a kiss on his lips before slipping into my underwear. "Don't suppose you can get my bra back?" I fluttered my eyelashes at him. "Damn right I will," he grumbled, stepping out of the bathroom as naked as the day he was born to search for his boxers. I had stripped him away somewhere in the bedroom but didn't know where. I am so glad this house is soundproof. As if him living here wasn't already annoying. If he had heard you moan the way I just did, he would be buried 6 feet under, he grumbled, sliding on his boxers over his semi-hard-on. "How are you already ready to go again?" I laughed, grabbing my shorts from the windowsill of the bedroom while combing my fingers through my hair. "I will always be ready for you." He winked, kissing me passionately before leaving to retrieve my bra. When he returned with the blue garment hanging from his finger, we dressed each other and he dried my hair, which was now more like beach waves than curls. We finished about 5 minutes before everyone was supposed to arrive, so helped Liam grab some snacks and drinks. "You two are seriously insatiable," he huffed, raising an eyebrow and frowning. I patted his cheek. "Don't steal my bra again, Liam, or I will castrate you." I kissed his other cheek lightly before skipping down the hallway to the front door. "Hey." Jordan launched herself at me and pulled me into a hug. "I miss you." Her familiar scent made me relax into her comforting arms and forget everything else for a minute. "I missed you too. I'm sorry I'm such a crappy friend. I have just been busy." I hugged her back with equal amounts of love before we pulled away and grinned at each other. "Hey guys." Caroline, Mason and Alexia appeared behind her and we all said hi before sitting on our front steps and waiting for the others. "Why are you both wet?" Lexi nodded towards me and I blushed while Zach smirked beside me. "Hot shower sex, I think." Liam laughed and she joined while I buried my head in my hands. "Shut up, Liam," I growled. "Oh, Zach. Oh, Zach, I can't wait anymore." "I need you," he mimicked, putting on an abnormally high-pitched voice. "Oh, Ella, you're so hot." "So hot, Ella." This time his voice was extremely low and I struggled to keep my smile at bay while I slapped his face and chest repeatedly. "Shut up, the room is soundproof. You couldn't even hear us," I reminded him, still slapping at him. "Well, that's how I imagine it went. And the eye far off," he smirked. Zach raised an amused eyebrow, pulling me away from his brother gently before asking, You imagine me having sex with my girlfriend. You seriously need to get laid, brother. Liam's face dropped and I laughed along with the rest of my friends while we waited for the others to join us. Chapter 36. Hey. I smiled over at Oliver and Liv as they approached the group. Blake had arrived a minute or so earlier, but Ryder was late, which was no surprise. Hey. Oliver grinned at me while everyone stared curiously at the two of them. Guys, this is Oliver and Liv, I introduced. They are new. Ollie, he corrected, holding out a hand to Liam, as in Oliver and Olivia. Caroline asked with a grin and they both scowled. Yeah, our parents picked Oliver for a boy and Olivia for a girl and didn't bother to change it when they got both. Liv huffed with an eye roll. Everyone introduced themselves while we waited for the last arrival. Hey losers. Ryder's voice yelled and we all turned to see his familiar grin. He hauled me into his chest and squeezed the life out of me before frowning. You totally got laid today, he announced. Ryder? I scolded, slapping him lightly. It was no secret from my friends anyway after Liam's very accurate acting, but I barely knew Ollie and Liv. He held his hands up and laughed. Sorry. He turned and gave Liam a weird bro hug thing, and I honestly wasn't at all surprised they were friends. They were both assholes. And who are the random strangers that are joining us? How welcoming of you. I rolled my eyes. This is Ollie and Liv. They are new to the pack. This is Ryder. He is rude and annoying and you should ignore everything that he says. I told them. Including when I tell you that when Ella was sick she was running away from me and I cut him off by clamping my hand over his mouth and glaring. He held up his hand in surrender and laughed when I reluctantly removed my hand. Wet herself, he blabbed and ran. I remember that. Jordan giggled. She cried when she told me. Jordan? I shook my head while she froze, realizing she had blabbed. Ryder, you are dead. Wouldn't let it be you right now. Mason chuckled, raising an eyebrow while Ryder backed away. You're human, Ollie stated, glaring in his direction. He knows and he keeps the secret. I told him, shaking my head. You don't have to worry. You trust humans? Liv scoffed and I narrowed my eyes at her. This one. I nodded. Can we go? It's 1,000,000 degrees and there is no shade here. Lexi groaned before we all started through the woods, picnic baskets and water bottles in hand. We arrived at the lake at around midday, the perfect time to cool down while the scorching sun blared in the sky. I immediately stripped down to my bikini along with the rest of the girls and glanced up to see Zach's eyes darken as they examined my body. I shuddered beneath his intense stare and had to turn away. Race you to the lake, Ryder exclaimed. I met his eyes and then Zach's before charging full speed towards the water. Slightly ahead of me, Zach launched himself off the bank and I followed behind him, the cold water slamming against my skin. Oh my God! I gasped as I emerged from beneath the surface. It felt like my whole body was encased in a freezer. I swam over to where Zach was treading water and nuzzled against him in an attempt to warm up, but even my human radiator was ice cold, so I pulled myself out of the lake to lounge on the grass. After a couple of hours of flitting between sunbathing the intense heat and then swimming to cool off, the boys decided on a game of football. I frowned as Zach kissed my cheek and then made his way over to the rest of the guys. Meanwhile, the girls were diving into the picnic baskets and Lexi blasted music from her phone. I dropped down beside Jordan and watched the guys from the corner of my eye. My mouth watered a little as they charged across the grass, shirtless and glistening. God, this is a good view, Liv laughed behind me. I smirked over at her and noticed the rest of the girls watching them too. We chatted for a while watching the boys and picking at the food around us. I love this song, Liv stated, stealing it another strawberry. We had a huge platter of them, and I am pretty sure between the two of us, we had demolished over half. So, do we? Lexi squealed, shaking her hips where she sat opposite me. We couldn't stop laughing as we all sang along at full volume to the music blasting from Lex's phone. Okay, ready? Zach asked me, holding a strawberry between his thumb and finger. I nodded yep. He grinned before tossing the fruit into the air, and I watched it fall perfectly in line with my mouth. I sealed my lips as sweetness flooded my mouth before Zach was pressing his lips to mine, thrusting his tongue into my mouth. Okay, well, before they started making out, did you see? Lexi huffed beside Liam, who was pulling the two of us apart. I know what to do. I just fail every single time. Liv grumbled. Here. Zach grabbed a strawberry and sat opposite her. Maybe you just had a shitty thrower, hey? Ollie exclaimed. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Zach tossed the berry and it flew over and straight into Liv's open mouth. I did it. She cheered while Zach moved to sit back beside me. Oh, do I not get the steamy make-out after? She frowned mockingly and Ryder bust out laughing. Not a chance. I mumbled, shaking my head. Zach smirked down at me, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear and pecking my lips. So, did you guys move here with your parents? Jordan asked the twins, and their laughter quickly died. Nola shook her head. They didn't love their children enough to stick with them. She huffed. Been there, Lexi muttered. Me too, Liam growled, flinging his arm around a pouting Lexi. Me too, Caroline scoffed. Jesus, do any of you have parents? Ollie asked on a laugh, and I couldn't help but glance at Zach, whose arm curled around Liam. I do, Jordan mumbled, having two perfectly happy parents who were alive and in love. Yeah, me too. Blake grinned sheepishly, almost guiltily. I have a mom. Mason shrugged, holding Caroline against him. Dad, she said. Mom, Lexi said. Neither. Ryder shrugged nonchalantly, although I knew that wasn't the case. His parents were killed when my mother was taken. His dad was trying to protect my parents, and his mother was killed along with many other pack members while trying to defend our territory. Ryder always acted as though it didn't affect him, but I knew to this day he still visited their graves on the anniversary of their death. Neither. Liam glanced to Zach, who shrugged in agreement. I leaned into his hold a little further and sighed. Neither. His hands found my hair, and I felt his chin on the top of my head while he ran his fingers through the drying locks. The twins looked to each other lovingly before Lev huffed. Well, I guess neither anymore. But our little brother is cute. She smiled happily at the mention of Luca. How old is he? Blake asked. 8. Ollie replied, and Blake nodded. My little sister is 8. Maybe we should introduce them. He smiled, and the two nodded. Before anyone could speak, my phone was ringing. Hey, Dan. I greeted my brother, leaning against Zach and taking his hand in my free one. Hey, Ella. I was just calling to say that Dad found his brother. He explained, and I tensed. He did. Zach squeezed my hand for support when my voice wavered a little. Yeah, it's your choice on whether he can leave, Elle. I said I would ask you before I made a decision. He assured me. Is he there? I held my breath waiting for his answer. Yeah, he is. I want to speak to him. A couple of seconds later, his voice boomed through the phone. This is a surprise. I didn't think my daughter would be demanding to speak to me anytime soon. He sounded genuinely confused, but I was still irritated. I told you? You aren't my father. I snapped. I wanted to tell you to go ahead and kill the bastard. I don't care. But do one thing for the child you made and stay the hell away from me. Once this is over, I don't ever want to see you, hear from you, know you. You got that? He sighed. I got that. By Dean. I growled into the phone. By Ella? I looked to see Zach mirroring my expression. You trust him? Zach asked. Nope. I shook my head. What did he say? Mason frowned. He knows where his brother is and he is going to kill him, and hopefully then I will never hear from him again. Zach's arms tightened around me and he kissed the shell of my ear. Baby, don't worry. He doesn't have any reason to try and contact you ever again. He was right? I knew he was right, and while a massive part of me hoped he was right, a small no, a minuscule part of me wanted him to be wrong. Chapter 37. Despite the fact it was a Monday night, Caroline suggested we spend the evening as a girls' night. We had spent the whole school day planning our night out together, and I was actually excited. It had been so much fun when we were all chatting yesterday while the guys played their stupid game, and tonight there was a football match on that they all seemed to want to watch, so I asked Zach if he wanted to invite them over while I went out with the girls. Are you sure about this? He frowned from the doorway, watching while I blow-dried my hair. I had just hopped out the shower when he came storming in with worried questions. Yes. I turned to face him and took in his extremely handsome, brooding expression. I had seen it often when he didn't get his own way. I will be fine. Dean won't show up at a cocktail bar in town trying to fight, and if he does, I'm sure between the 5 of us, we will beat the shit out of him. And what about his brother? He raised an eyebrow. We don't know the lengths he is willing to go. He killed your mom's sweetheart, the person his brother loved. Somehow I doubt a few cocktails will stop him. Zach, I will be fine, I told him slowly, taking his face in my hands and running my fingers over the dusting of stubble on his jaw. I promise. I don't like you being out without me, he grumbled, twisting my hair in his fingers. I promise to call if I need you, and I will text you all night, I assured him, kissing his lips and then his cheeks and then the rest of his face before circling back to his lips. Fine. He pouted like a child. I laughed, shaking my head at him. What time does the game start? 7. Is that when you are all meeting? He asked me, leaning against the counter beside me while I curled my hair. 7:30, I told him. Tyler is taking over for a few hours, but I told him to let you know if it's urgent. Is that okay? That's fine. He pecked my cheek gently. I will call you if you're needed. Promise me you will stay safe. Okay, don't drink too much. He begged, and I could see the worry in his beautiful bright eyes. I promise. He smiled and kissed me again before leaving me to get ready. An hour later, I was staring at my reflection. It'd been a while since I had been out and dressed up like this, and of course, Lexi made sure I wasn't going in anything remotely casual or comfortable. My dress was red and wrapped tightly around my figure, hugging my curves nicely. It was strapless with a slightly low neckline where my favorite necklace, that Zach had given me, sat. It was a small, glittering heart with his name engraved across the back and a rose threading through it that was the same color as my dress. The pair of red lace heels made my legs look a little longer than they usually were, and despite my hate for anything uncomfortable, they were really beautiful. My hair cascaded in ringlets around my face, which I had touched up with some mascara, lip gloss, and blush. I strutted down the stairs where the sound of the guys yelling at the TV made me grin. I stood in the doorway as I watched a figure move across the field with the ball before swinging his leg back and thwacking it towards the goal. They all cheered until it flew straight over the top and then started yelling at the player. "Hate to break it to you, but he can't hear you," I scoffed, shuffling across the room to grab my clutch and phone from the windowsill. Holy shit. I heard Liam and turned to see their attention shifted to me. What? I shifted under their gazes uncomfortably. "You are not wearing that out," Zach snapped, raising to his feet. "Why is there something wrong?" I frowned. "I thought I looked okay." "Shut up, Zach. My best eye, you look sexy as hell." Ryder was grinning like a maniac, and I smiled back appreciatively. "That's the problem," Zach growled. "You look far too beautiful to be allowed out. Every guy will be falling to his knees and begging you for the kind of things you're only allowed to do with me." I smiled up at him and kissed his lips lovingly. "I only want to do them with you," I promised while my hand slipped down his torso to brush lightly over his erection bulging in his jeans. Luckily, his back was to the rest of them, blocking their view of his growing erection while I rubbed him. But I don't have time to change. I dropped my hand and strutted past him, kissing Liam and Ryder on the cheek. "Bye, guys." I blew them all a kiss and winked over to a furious-looking Zach before stepping out the front door to be greeted with four smiling faces. "You didn't," Caroline giggled, sipping on her fifth, maybe sixth cocktail. "Yeah?" He texted me as soon as we left saying he would get me back. I laughed. "Aren't you scared?" Liv asked me, throwing back shots like she was dying of thirst. "Nah, he knows if he tries anything he won't get laid." I shrugged, lugging down my own drink. I had promised Zach I wouldn't drink too much, but I had a feeling I was way past that. "So, what's the deal with your dad? I thought you were neither." Liv asked me, swaying a little on her chair. "Well, Livy, I am a neither. My mom and dad were both killed, but then I found out he wasn't my bogo. Digo, 𝐿𝐷𝐞𝐝. That's a hard word to say. I hiccuped. Anyway, turns out that my real dad is, wait for it, the one who murdered them." I shook my head dramatically and chugged another glass of something down. "You are such a lightweight," Lexi laughed, pointing to the space about 6 inches away from me. "You need to get a better tolerance, Sala," she lectured the waitress who removed our empty glasses. She sent Lexi a look while I sniggered, and then she turned to leave. Before the blonde woman in her 20s could leave, however, Lexi grabbed her arm. "Seriously, Ella? You shouldn't be this drunk." "Lexi, I am over here, silly." I waved and she frowned, still clinging to the waitress. "Oh, sorry, Jordan. I thought you were," she hiccuped. "Ella," she shook her head. "Did you dye your hair?" The woman pulled away and stormed off while I howled with laughter. "Let's dance again," the real Jordan suggested. Well, one of them did. There were about 3 swaying in front of me, okay. I cheered and dragged Caroline and Lydie with me onto the dance floor while Jordan number 1, 2 and 4 carried Lexi over. Jordan 3 was still swaying on the spot. The 5 of us spent the next half an hour grinding and shaking our hips to the music while simultaneously brushing off persistent guys we didn't want. I said, "Get off me, you perv." I heard Livy yell and turn to her rescue, only to see Jordan holding her arm for support. "I'm not a perv," she hiccuped, holding some guy's face in her hands. "I'm really not." "I believe you." He nodded and scurried away. My best friend took my hand and smiled. "She believed me," she giggled. "I think they were at Winboy's Jordan." I howled with laughter. "Oh. Oopsie." I was laughing so hard by the time the five of us stumbled into the car park of the club, huddling together in the biting wind while we waited for the guys to come and get us. Mason lived just down the road, so Zach was going to drive him to the car park, and then him and Caroline would walk to his and she would stay there for the night while Zach took the rest of us home. "Zach will be angry with me," I giggled to Caroline. "I think I am going to have sex with Mason," she announced, and Lexi wind. "I want to have sex," she groaned. "With Liam?" Jordan clarified, and I gasped. "Yes, Lexi Pie." "Have sex with Liam," I encouraged her as she grinned. "Okay," she nodded in affirmation. "Who are you going to have sex with, Jordan?" she suddenly asked our small blonde friend who looked like a deer caught in headlights. She blushed and shrugged, suddenly seeming much more sober. "Nobody," she squeaked. "Probably just myself." We all laughed when the car swung onto the tarmac. "Zach, why?" I smiled as he jumped out the car. "I love you, Zach, why?" I reached out for him, but the floor shifted underneath me and I went plummeting to the floor. "Oops," I mumbled, my eyes heavy as I was lifted up and thrown into soft leather before everything went black. Chapter 38. Blinding light woke me the next morning, and I was sure my retinas were frying in the simmering brightness. A mixture of a groan and a squeal left my lips as I slammed my eyes closed and buried my head in the soft material around me. Somehow, I was in my bed. My warm, comfortable duvet swamped my naked body, and I shuffled further into the mattress. At the small movement, I felt my head thunder and whine from the pain. "Good morning." My boyfriend had the perfect hangover voice. It was low and soothing, and I wanted to sink into the warm sound. "Zach," I mumbled, content lie. It was Zach why last night. His voice laced with humor, and the bed sunk as he sat beside me. "How are you feeling?" I groaned a little while feeling around for his hand. "Crap." The warmth from his hand as it closed around mine sent tingles through me. "So much for not drinking too much, baby. You drank the most out of everyone." He still spoke soothingly, but I knew he was irritated about my consumption. "I'm sorry." I got an incy bit carried away. I turned to give him a sheepish smile and was greeted with the most damn beautiful face on the planet. He looked a little rough, probably from worrying about me last night, and the guilt gnawed at me. "I am sorry." He smiled gently. "I know." He reached behind him to retrieve a glass of water while I pulled myself up into a sitting position. "Here." I gulped down a few mouthfuls of the cool water before he revealed a couple of small white pills in his palm. "These might help with the headache." I took them appreciatively and smiled. "You're the best." His hand shot out to draw a strand of loose hair that clung to my sweaty forehead back behind me ear. "Do you remember anything from last night?" I thought back to getting ready and arriving and dancing with my friends, and my memory was pretty clear right up until the moment Zach arrived, and then everything went fuzzy. "Not once you pulled into the car park," I admitted. "Well, you told me you loved me, tried to hug me, and were about a meter away from me, so face planted instead." He smirked and I cringed. "You were passed out in the car and stayed out while I struggled to remove that damn dress and practically dropped you into bed." I glanced up to see him shaking his head in amusement. "You didn't take advantage of me, did you?" I gasped, knowing that was the last thing Zach would ever do. No, I was put off when you finally stirred enough to puke all over me, he grumbled. I winced. I'm so sorry. I don't even remember that. I flopped back onto the bed and buried my head in the pillow. I felt Zach shift before his face was nuzzled in my neck. It's okay, baby. Do you think you can manage a shower? He murmured, and I shot him a look. Not like that. He sighed. Oh, well, I doubt I will be able to stand for long. My legs are killing me, I growled. In a second, I was lifted off the bed and carried towards the bathroom. I hadn't got enough energy to argue as Zach gently lowered me to my feet and started to fill the bathtub. I plopped my bum onto the toilet lid while he added in all sorts of soaps and creams and then let him lower me into the warm water. I moaned at the amazing feeling of the water around me and relaxed against the edge of the bath while the most amazing boyfriend in the world started to untangle my hair and run shampoo into every strand. That's amazing, I muttered as he massaged soap into my scalp. I love you so much. He moved onto my shoulders, running a bar of soap over my bare skin. I love you too. Zach washed every inch of my body and hair until the smell of alcohol and vomit had been eswelled away and replaced with a sweet, fruity scent. He then pulled me out of the bath and wrapped a huge, fluffy and warm towel around my body before pulling me onto his lap and rubbing the droplets of water gently off my skin. He retrieved his comfiest pair of tracksuit bottoms and his softest shirt before slipping them over my body and enveloping me in his homely scent. Before I knew it, I was back in bed, drifting off with the warmth of my boyfriend holding me, the pounding in my head fading and a smile on my face. When I next woke up, the clock on the wall read just gone midday and I groaned internally, just realizing I was supposed to be at school today. I slipped from between the covers, still dressed in Zach's clothes, and followed the smell of food to the kitchen where the love of my life was dishing up a plate of scrambled egg on toast. Oh God, that smells amazing, I hummed, taking my seat on the bar stool. I was just about to come and get you. How are you? Feeling any better? He kissed my cheek and I grabbed his jaw to pull him around in my mouth. I feel amazing. Thank you for taking care of me. I kissed him again, and again, and maybe again before the growling of my stomach reminded me of the delicious food set in front of me. Our party girl is up, Liam's voice announced from behind me, and I turned to see his amused grin. I groaned. Was I that bad? You came home and told me I had to have sex with Lexi. He grinned, but a small tinge of blush raised to his cheeks. Liam Thorne, are you blushing? I gasped, taking a closer look at the pink that warmed his cheeks. You are? I am not. Sweetheart, he scoffed, turning to the food to hide his cute little pink cheeks. You totally are, Zach insisted. Get lost, Zach. Liam snapped and I couldn't stop from giggling. You like Lexi. That's so cute. He frowned at me. She totally likes you too, I told him. I can tell how. He raised an eyebrow and Zach grinned at me. So you do like her. He laughed. I hate both of you. He grabbed the plate and stormed off upstairs to eat it, leaving the two of us to laugh at how adorable he was. When our laughter died, I looked to Zach. Did the others go to school today? Yeah, their parents and brothers wouldn't let them stay at home and they weren't nearly as hungover as you. He rolled his eyes but smiled lovingly at me. Thanks for bringing us back last night and for getting them home safe. I kissed his cheek. Well, to be honest, all I did was drive. Ollie took Liv home, Ryder took Jordan and Blake walked Lexi home. Although, I did have to put up with their awful singing and dog chatter in the car. He laughed, taking another bite of his toast. Did you guys enjoy the game? I asked him. Yeah, it was good. We won, he told me. That's good. So you had a good night then? Mostly. I grinned, but his eyes darkened a little. Well, his hand slipped over my thigh while his thumb started to caress the inside of my leg. I spent the night thinking about the beautiful girl I am in love with in her sexy little dress and ended up with hard on all night. He leaned in closer so I could feel his breath on my cheek. So I think you owe me. My stomach fluttered as suddenly my plans for the rest of the day became crystal clear.